Podcast Talk.
Learn English naturally.
From thinking to speaking. You know that moment when everything feels clear and organized in your head, but the second you open your mouth in English, your thoughts just disappear? You're not nervous, and you're definitely not bad at English. What's really happening is that your brain is stuck between thinking and speaking. You know what you want to say, but you don't trust yourself to say it out loud. And that gap between understanding and speaking is exactly what holds most people back. Today, we're talking about why this happens and how to finally move past it without forcing yourself.
What really surprised me was realizing how automatic this freeze can be. I wasn't panicking, I wasn't confused, and I wasn't lost. I was simply overthinking every possible version of the sentence before choosing one. My brain was checking grammar, tone, and even how I might sound to other people. And all of that happened in a split second, so instead of speaking, I paused. That pause felt small, but inside it was loud. I think that's the moment many learners mistake for lack of ability, when it's actually a sign that they care too much about getting it right.
I think the hardest part is that silence feels louder inside your head than it actually is. You pause for half a second, but it feels like everyone is watching you. And in that moment, your brain starts racing. You're not just thinking about what to say, you're judging yourself for thinking. I remember sitting in cafes at work meetings, even casual chats, where I knew exactly what I wanted to express emotionally, but I was stuck translating it into correct English. And the more I tried to polish the sentence, the less natural it sounded in my head. That's when I realized the problem wasn't vocabulary, it was fear of sounding imperfect. Once I noticed that, I understood why speaking felt heavier than it should.
That fear shows up in very sneaky ways. You don't think I'm scared. I think, let me just fix this sentence first. But conversation doesn't wait. Life doesn't pause while you edit. I had moments where someone asked me something simple, and instead of answering naturally, I tried to build the best possible version of the answer. By the time I was ready, the moment had passed. What helped me was realizing that real conversations are messy. People interrupt, change direction, misunderstand each other. And none of that means you're bad at English. It means you're human. Once I accepted that, speaking stopped feeling like a performance and started feeling like interaction again.
Exactly. And that's where confidence actually comes from. Not from knowing everything, but from being okay with not knowing something in the moment. I started allowing myself to speak before I felt ready. Sometimes I corrected myself mid-sentence. Sometimes I laughed and said, "That's not the word I wanted." And nothing bad happened. People didn't judge me. Most of them leaned in more. Because real connection doesn't come from perfect language, it comes from honesty. When you stop protecting every sentence, your voice becomes freer. And little by little, thinking turns into speaking without that heavy pause in between.
I think a lot of people underestimate how physical speaking feels. Your chest tightens, your throat dries, your breathing changes. It's not just thinking in English, it's your body reacting to pressure. I remember answering a simple question like, "How was your weekend?" and suddenly feeling like I had to deliver something interesting, fluent, and smooth. So instead of speaking, I froze. And what helped wasn't learning more phrases, it was slowing down inside. Letting myself speak at the speed my thoughts actually moved. Once I stopped rushing myself, words came out imperfect but real. And that's when conversations started to flow again.
That's such an important point, Jake, because we often think fluency means speed, but fluency is comfort. Some of the most confident speakers I know speak slowly. They pause, they restart sentences, and nobody questions their level. When I began developing pauses, I noticed something interesting. People didn't rush me, they waited because pauses signal confidence, not weakness. And once you feel safe pausing, your thoughts stop fighting your voice. They start moving together. That's when thinking naturally turns into speaking.
I realized that the biggest gap wasn't between my vocabulary and my speaking, it was between my thoughts and my courage. I knew what I wanted to say, but I was constantly checking myself before speaking. Is this the right word? Is this sentence too simple? Will I sound strange? And all that thinking created silence. What changed everything for me was allowing my first version to exist. Not the perfect one, the first one. Once I spoke without editing myself in real time, my mind relaxed. And when the mind relaxes, language flows naturally, not fast, not perfect, but real.
I think many people don't realize how much pressure they put on themselves before they even open their mouth. They think speaking means proving something, proving that they are smart enough, fluent enough, confident enough. And that pressure blocks the natural process of thinking out loud. For me, the shift happened when I stopped treating English like a test. I started treating it like a tool to explain ideas, share small stories, even express uncertainty. Once I allowed myself to say things like, I'm not sure how to explain this yet, or let me think for a second, my speaking became more relaxed. Because real conversations are not polished. They are built in real time, word by word. And that's where real fluency begins.
That idea of speaking as a test is so damaging. I used to replay conversations in my head after they ended, thinking about what I should have said differently. But that habit kept me stuck. What helped me, I was focusing on intention instead of accuracy. Instead of asking, did I say this correctly? I asked, did the other person understand me? When the answer was yes, I counted it as a win. Language exists to connect people, not to impress them. And when you prioritize connection, your brain stops freezing. You start speaking more freely because the goal becomes communication, not perfection.
And there's another layer people rarely talk about. Thinking in English doesn't happen all at once. It grows slowly. At first, you translate in your head, then you start thinking in short phrases, and eventually, thoughts appear without effort. But this only happens if you allow yourself to speak imperfectly. If you wait until your thoughts sound perfect, you will stay silent much longer than necessary. Speaking is what trains thinking, not the other way around. So every imperfect sentence you say is actually progress, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment.
I like to think of speaking as momentum. Once you start, it becomes easier to continue. But starting is the hardest part. That's why small habits matter. Talking to yourself, explaining your day out loud, describing what you're doing as you do it. These moments train your brain to move from thought to speech naturally, not quickly, naturally. And over time, that gap between thinking and speaking gets smaller until one day you realize you're no longer translating, you're just talking.
Let's make this practical because people love advice, but they need something they can actually do today. One of the best ways to move from thinking to speaking is to remove the perfect sentence goal completely. Instead, give yourself a simpler goal. Keep the conversation moving. That means using real life filler phrases that native speakers use all the time. Phrases like, honestly, let me think for a second. Kripa, how do I explain this? At that. It's kind of like these phrases buy you time without creating awkward silence. And they also keep your brain in speaking mode instead of editing mode. Because once you start speaking, your mind follows your voice. But if you stay silent, your mind starts judging you. So the trick is simple. Speak first, polish later.
Yes, and I'd add something people don't expect. Speaking badly is often the fastest path to speaking well. I don't mean speaking carelessly, I mean speaking without fear. I used to avoid conversations because I didn't want to sound simple. So I'd stay quiet, thinking I was protecting my image. But the truth is, silence doesn't improve your English. It only protects your comfort. Once I accepted that simple English is powerful English, I started talking more. Short sentences, clear ideas, real reactions, and the more I spoke, the more my brain stopped freezing. Because it learned that nothing terrible happens when you speak imperfectly. That's how confidence is built. Not through studying more, so through surviving real conversations.
And this is why so many learners feel smart when listening but weak when speaking. Listening is safe. Speaking is exposure. When you speak, you reveal your level in real time. And that feels vulnerable. But vulnerability is not a weakness, it's the training ground. The moment you accept that you might sound imperfect, you stop wasting energy on hiding. You start using that energy to communicate, and communication creates progress. I've noticed that learners who improve fastest aren't the ones who know the most grammar, they're the ones who are willing to talk through discomfort. They treat mistakes like information, not like embarrassment. And that mindset is what turns thinking into speaking.
Exactly, and I want to connect this to real life. Imagine you're ordering coffee, meeting a friend, or answering a coworker. You don't need perfect English in those moments. You need usable English. If your brain freezes, it helps to have a starter line ready, something that launches you into speaking. For example, Laura, so the thing is, or actually, let me explain. Once you say the starter line, you're already speaking. Your voice is moving, your breathing is moving, your brain is engaged. And then your next sentence comes easier. This is why I tell people don't wait for the full sentence in your head. Start with a bridge phrase and build the sentence out loud. That's how real people talk, anyway.
I want to talk about a moment everyone recognizes, but few people name. That moment when you know what you want to say, yeah. Mm, But you wait. You wait for the perfect word, the perfect structure, the perfect timing. And while you wait, the moment passes. Someone else speaks. The conversation moves on. And you're left thinking, I could have said that. That gap between thinking and speaking is not a language problem. It's a hesitation habit. Your brain learned to pause instead of act. So the goal isn't to think faster, it's to interrupt the pause. The fastest speakers aren't faster thinkers, they're faster starters. They begin before everything is clear, and clarity comes while they're already talking. That's the shift that changes everything.
Yes, and that pause becomes stronger the more you respect it. People think hesitation means, I need more English. But most of the time, it means I'm afraid to sound wrong. I've seen people with very basic vocabulary communicate clearly, while advanced learners stay silent. Not because they don't know what to say, but because they're negotiating with themselves. Um, they're checking grammar. They're predicting reactions. They're trying to control the outcome. And real conversation doesn't wait for control. It rewards movement, even messy movement. So if your sentence starts imperfectly, good. You're already ahead of the version of you that stayed quiet. That's progress is in real time.
And here's something important. Fluency is not confidence. Fluency is familiarity. The more situations you survive in English, the more familiar they become. The cafe, the meeting, the casual chat. At first, your body reacts with tension. Your shoulders tighten, your breath shortens. But with repetition, your nervous system relaxes. And once your body feels safe, your words come out faster. This is why practice alone doesn't fully work. You need repeated exposure to real situations. Not perfect ones, real ones. That's how thinking stops being loud and speaking becomes automatic.
I want to leave one practical idea here. Stop asking yourself, is this sentence correct? Start asking, is this sentence alive? Does it move the conversation forward? Does it express something real? Because native speakers forgive mistakes. What they notice is presence. If you're engaged, reacting, responding, that's communication. So next time you feel stuck in your head, don't fight the thought. Step around it. Say something simple, then add, then adjust. Speaking is not a performance, it's a process. And once you accept that, thinking naturally turns into speaking.
Jake, I want to be very honest here. This used to be me all the time. I'd sit in a group, listening, understanding everything, and still say nothing. Not because I was shy, but because I was rehearsing inside my head. I was thinking, okay, say it better. No, not like that. Wait. And then someone else jumped in. Later, I'd replay the moment thinking, why didn't I just say it? Have you noticed how that usually happens in casual moments, not serious ones? Like small talk at work or chatting with friends after a meeting. Those moments feel low risk, but emotionally, they're the hardest because there's no script. And English learners are often great with scripts. It's the unscripted life moments that expose the gap between thinking and speaking.
Yes, Emma. And I've seen this from the other side too. I've had conversations where someone barely spoke, and later they sent me a long message saying that, hey, I wanted to say so much, but I froze. And that tells me the problem wasn't language, it was timing. Real conversations don't give you space to prepare. They reward quick, imperfect reactions. I remember one time at a coffee shop, the barista asked me something unexpected, and even as a native speaker, I answered awkwardly. But the conversation moved on. Nobody cared. And that's the key moment learners miss. Conversation doesn't stop to judge you, it keeps flowing. So when you hesitate, you're fighting the natural rhythm. Joining late is still joining. Silence is the only thing that really disconnects you.
Jake, I think this is the moment people really need to hear. If you're listening right now and thinking, I understand English, but I don't speak the way I think, you're not broken. You're just stuck in the thinking phase. And the shift doesn't happen by learning more words. It happens when you give yourself permission to sound unfinished. Real conversations are built on half thoughts, small reactions, and imperfect timing. Nobody's waiting for you to be impressive. They're waiting for you to be present. So if today you speak once more than yesterday, that's progress. That's real movement. And that's how thinking slowly turns into speaking naturally.
And I'll add one last thing. If this conversation felt familiar, it means you're already closer than you think. Listening like this, reflecting like this, that's part of learning real English. So don't keep it passive. Take one idea from today and try it in your next conversation, even if it's messy. And if you want more episodes like this with real talk, real situations, and real English, subscribe to Off Script English. Write in the comments what moments feel hardest for you: thinking, starting, or keeping a conversation going. We read everything, and we'll talk about it next time. Thanks for listening.